talk. He is Rashad Beard, host of the Panther Nation podcast, joins us every Thursday at 8:40 to talk a little Big Cat football. What's up, fella?
What's going on, guys? Roster set. Man, it's exciting times. The past couple of days have been great. Exciting times in Carolina Panthers football. So let's talk about it.
I got to tell you, dude, before we do, because I'm like you, like we do sports talk radio, but I'm kind of at like the talking's done. Let's line them up and play kind of part of the year for me. But what is the mood we're setting in the bro cave right now, Rashad? We got the lights dimmed down. The neons are off. We got, what is that, like a salt lamp going on the counter behind? It feels to me like you are like, you're in a football mood right now.
Nah. So I redid my setup. Got my camera, better camera now. So I'm probably a little bit more clear. Just switching things up a little bit, man. Okay. So yeah, I'm ready. I'm ready for football, man. Let's get it.
Look, it's a new era of Carolina Panther football. It's a new era of the Panther Nation podcast. Follow them on X at Panther Nation PC and on YouTube. Search and subscribe to the Panther Nation podcast. Let's jump in, big dog. Let's start with this one. Obviously, the answer to this is TMJ, and we'll talk about him in just a minute. But what were the big surprises to you on cut day? Was there anybody that did not make the roster you expected to, or anybody that did make the roster you expected not to?
Well, you have to kind of separate the two because the initial roster cuts were, they were what they were. And then there were some additional cuts yesterday to make room for some of the waiver claims that we made. So initially, in the initial roster, yes, TMJ getting cut was kind of surprising. But if you've been following, it's not so surprising, right? It was a decision to start to develop some younger talent. It's time to move on from TMJ. This is a guy that it was the final year of his contract. And I guess they deemed it not necessary for him to be here. If you're not going to extend him, why, waste his time? Why waste our time? And so they cut him. I believe it was part of the plan the entire time was to boost his trade value. He had a great camp, a great preseason. We were trying to boost his value to flip him and trade him to another team. Unfortunately, that did not work. Couldn't find a partner. And so we had to let him go. He ends up signing with the 49ers, just like all the other former Carolina Panthers do. And so salute to him. It's a good spot for him. Hopefully he'll end up turning it around over there. I know they could have some wide receiver issues moving forward with Ayuk and the contract and all that stuff. So good spot for him to land. Other than that, man, a couple surprises. Jordan Matthews getting cut. He's a tight end, former wide receiver turned tight end. Is a great leader, great guy to have on the roster. I was surprised that he got cut. Everything else is pretty much chalk. No real surprises. Our guy Jalen Coker, who we've been cheering for, did get cut. Hopefully he gets back on the roster, on the practice squad, today if he clears waivers. So no real surprises outside of that.
Yeah, and we'll come to the TMJ thing because I do have some thoughts on that I want to run by you. But I completely agree with Jordan Matthews specifically because, and I know I've made the joke 100 times about this being Bryce Young's rookie season. No, it's not, but I'm treating it like it is. To me, when you have a young quarterback and you are trying to build up that confidence, and I do think especially early in the season, it is about confidence building, not just for Bryce Young, for everybody else in the offense, for Dave Canales as an offensive play caller and guru, et cetera, et cetera. I think it's about confidence building. And having a good pass-catching tight end. This is why I got excited about Hayden Hurst last year and disappointed when it didn't work out. Having a good pass-catching tight end or a couple of them is important. Ian Thomas is still on this depth chart, listed as 2 behind Tommy Tremble, JT Sanders, who had a couple of real bright spots in this preseason and was expected to kind of develop into a good pass-catching tight end. Is the tight end position good enough for you with the cut of Jordan Matthews?
Yeah, we did bring back Jordan Matthews on the practice squad, so he is still kind of technically a member of the Panthers, but obviously not on the 53-man roster. But yeah, I like it. I think that a lot of folks do not like Ian Thomas. He's survived 5-6 coaches, it seems, and so he's a good blocker. And with the with the focus on the run game, you need those 2 blocking tight ends. You need to have a receiving threat as well. So I do agree with that. Jatavion Sanders is the future, right? So we need him to develop though. He's not a finished product. He has to become a better blocker. And so I like where the tight ends are. I'm not mad at it, but obviously Panther Nation is a bit upset with Ian Thomas still sticking around. But obviously he survived for a reason, and he's good at something. And so we just need to see it. It's just not he's not making the flashy plays. He's not the receiving threat. He's not a Travis Kelce type tight end, and so people aren't really happy with it. But it is what it is. There, I'm happy with the tight end position.
All right, let's talk about TMJ and get this one out of the way, because you just said something that was interesting. My thought when I saw that name come across, I had heard the trade rumors that Carolina was looking for a dance partner to make something happen, which is it's not uncommon, all right, for that to happen with guys that are cut. And then teams basically decide, like, it's worth the trade because we don't think this guy will pass waivers, or it's not worth the trade because we think there's a good chance we get him. TMJ is interesting because he did have an impressive offseason. Did he have an impressive offseason because maybe TMJ grew a little bit, and we're gonna look at him in a year or two in San Francisco and go, oh man, like, why couldn't you have been that? Like when you break up with somebody and then they go date somebody else and all of a sudden they turn into that person you wanted them to be. Are we gonna see that? Or did TMJ have a good preseason because Dave Canales was utilizing the preseason to build him up? Is one of those two things more true than the other, or was it maybe a little bit of both?
I think it's a little bit of both. We've seen TMJ do some things around here. When Steve Wilkes was the interim head coach, TMJ was solid. He was putting up numbers. And so we know he's capable, but that really isn't you have to think about it from a team building standpoint, right? He's on the final year of his deal. Are you going to pay him and Deontay Johnson? Probably not. You drafted Xavier Legette. You drafted Jonathan Mingo. You've invested in some undrafted free agents. I just don't see them. You have to make a decision. And so I do think there's going to be a part of us that are going to look back and be like, oh, man, we let one go. It always happens to Carolina, right? But that's not TMJ's fault. That's just a matter of he got lost in the shuffle. We keep changing coaches. That's just the nature of the game, right? So he's going to get another opportunity to prove himself in a more proven, settled, system in San Francisco. He's going to insert himself, and I'm sure he's going to have a solid career. Unfortunately, it just didn't happen here, and so I do believe he's going to have a good redemption story out in San Francisco for sure.
All right, one more guy I want to ask you about, then we'll talk about some of the waiver wire pickups and where you think they fit in, and that is Mike Boone. The reason why is because, and I know you got Canales' number. I know you text him all the time. You're working that inside contact. I respect that. I'm not quite as close with him. Me and him just kind of golf buddies on the weekend. Mike Boone's the only guy that he specifically brought out by name, right? He's like, I want this guy to clear waivers. We want him on the practice wire. I found this one interesting because with John Brooks, we know he's on the PUP list now, missing the first 4 weeks. We know Raheem Blackshear did not play a snap in the preseason because they're trying to get him right. The way Mike Boone was running during the preseason, 76 yards on 18 carries, kind of felt like maybe he could be a bit of a stopgap in that role of that third running back behind Hubbard and Sanders until you got Brooks back and Blackshear was healthy again. He ends up getting cut. Canales says, we want him back in the locker room. We want him on the practice squad. Did that one surprise you a little bit? Either the move to release Mike Boone or that Canales called his name out specifically as a guy he wanted back?
No, I think Mike Boone had a really good training camp and a really good preseason. So I'm not surprised that he was called out specifically by Canales. He did a really good job. I was a bit surprised that we only kept 3 running backs. I thought they would have maybe kept Mike Boone. But when that cut went out, it kind of signaled some other things, especially with the wide receivers. But he did end up coming back to the practice squad, so that's great. Raheem Blackshear is with the cuts of Amir Smith-Marset. Now is our only one of our only solid returners that we have for special teams. So I don't know why we didn't see much of Blackshear. That was a little bit of a head scratcher in the preseason, but maybe they were just saving him. I don't know if he's nursing the injury. I don't know what's going on with Blackshear, but I do know he's a very good returner. And so I'm not surprised with that. But Mike Boone was very solid. He had a very good preseason, and I'm not surprised he's back on this roster, and he's going to contribute in some way, shape, or form.
Yesterday, waiver wire day. Panthers obviously were right there in the mix for basically anybody they wanted off the waiver wire. 5 players end up getting picked up after the initial round. You've got a couple of guys that have been added to the practice squad. We know Jack Plummer's there. Mason Brooks is there. Kenny Dyson is there. Was there anything yesterday in the waiver wire day that jumped off the page at you, or was it pretty much what you expected?
No, I was very surprised with the waiver wire pickups. I predicted 2 pickups maybe. We ended up picking up 6 guys, 3 of them cornerbacks, right? And so interesting, if you listen to Dave Canales talk about the cornerback room, this is what I love. I mean, this really got me going yesterday. When you talk about Canales and this new energy that's here in Carolina, is that, hey, man, we gave some guys an opportunity to step up and grab that CB2 spot, right? And they just didn't do it, right? So it's at that time, it's time for us to move on. And they ended up grabbing 3 guys and putting them on the 53-man roster. Keenan Isaac from Tampa Bay, Shamar Bartholomew, Tariq Castro Fields, who all had really good preseasons. So to me, this is signaling, hey, we're not settling. And he said it specifically, hey, we're looking across the league. We're stacking up our roster against the rest of the league. And it just wasn't good enough in the cornerback room. We challenged the guys. They didn't meet the challenge. So we went out there and got 3. That it's refreshing to hear in Carolina that we're not just resting on our laurels and giving these guys spots just because they've been around for a long time. So that got me excited. We also got offensive guard Jared Kingston, very good player as well, coming from the 49ers. I'm excited about the waiver wire pickups. And the roster's not set by any means. I think they're still going to do some shuffling, but I like it. I love what we've been doing.
Slick Vic in the chat said, we done settling for mid, and I agree, man. Like, listen, I think it's important to point out, Rashad, and this is something I've been trying to spend the offseason doing, and been a lot of fans down here that are like, oh, Rob, you're just crapping all over the hopes and dreams. And not. To me, it's important to keep reality here. This roster is not there yet. There is still work that needs to be done, both this year and probably through the offseason next year, to fill in a couple of gaps. I think even with the additions, you still got a linebacker spot you need to figure out there. You're right. You bring in some cornerbacks. I don't know if any of them are going to be the guy. So you got to see if any of them stick, whatever. I think it's important to keep it realistic about what this roster is and where this team is. But I also don't think there's anything wrong with getting excited about the fact that this isn't a Matt Rule OOU situation where it's a bunch of guys that are hanging around because they're one of us and have been here for a minute. This is a team that said, look, we like you, Mike Boone, but if we don't feel you're going to contribute, we got to make the move and we got to move on. And I like that it does feel, and maybe this is where I've got some silver and blue glasses on, because, again, I need y'all to be good so I get paid more money. That's the ultimate prize for me. Ain't a Lombardi. It's a paycheck. I need y'all to be good. To me, maybe I'm being optimistic here, but this feels like the most proactive, at least in the last handful of years, that Carolina was. It felt like a flurry the last 2 days to get this roster right. And as somebody who looks at it through the eyes of, I support you because I want to make the money off of you, but like, objectively from the outside looking in, I'm pretty impressed with the way that the last 3 days have been handled by Dave Canales in the Panther front office.
Yeah, every move seems intentional, right? Even with the move of Jalen Coker, not releasing him on the first day, but releasing him on the second day to hope to give them a better opportunity to clear waivers, to get him back on the roster to develop them. That stuff, it makes sense. Every move is intentional, and it seems like it makes sense. Now, that being said, I'm not saying that every move is right, because we need to see the product on the field, right? I'm giving them an opportunity to show us, hey, we're moving in the right direction. So, but all of what I see right now, completely agree. It looks better. It to me, as a guy that's been watching the Panthers for the last 5 years, it hasn't been great. And we've been making some of the same dumb mistakes over and over and over again. And now it signals a little different change, right? We haven't seen Tepper around. He's been quiet. He stepped back, so to speak. And so now we're really letting our guys do their jobs. Dan Morgan's cooking. Canales is saying the right things. He's keeping it real with us. That's what I love about Canales. He's telling the truth, right? And so I love the direction of the Carolina Panthers right now. But we have to see it on the field. Week 1, we got to see what if it all makes sense, and then we can cheer on. But if they don't look great, we also have to hold them accountable. So we will do that.
I could go for another hour with Rashad Beard of the Panther Nation podcast about what we're seeing instead. Last question, 30 seconds. You think Dave Canales is a guy that like gets up and has like a kale smoothie and goes for a jog at breakfast? We were talking about this show. He totally is, right?
Absolutely. He is absolutely a sunrise run kind of guy. That's exactly who Canales is.
I think that's good though. Right? Like that's a detailed guy. You don't want some dude like me that's waking up at like 1:30 in the afternoon and banging down a half a stick of cookie dough. I need a kale smoothie guy, and Canales feels like him.
He's definitely a kale smoothie kind of guy, man. That absolutely sums up Dave Canales, and I love it. The energy is great. As long as it keeps his energy going, I love it.
Next Thursday, when Rashad Beard joins the show, We got us a little bleep talking contest coming up because it's Saints hosting the Panthers in week 1. We will break down and give you our thoughts on that game a week from right now. My man, good to have you, big dog. Appreciate it. Talk to you next week for a little week 1 preview, brother.
Absolutely. Let's get it. I'm excited.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Rashad Beer, Panther Nation Podcast. Follow them on X at Panther Nation PC. More importantly, head on over to the YouTube channel, search and subscribe to the Panther Nation Podcast on YouTube. Rashad will join us next week for a week 1 preview. And now for a preview of the things you'll talk about to work today, here's Lonzo Sports Flash.
Exactly. Starting with the Atlanta Braves, who finished off a 3-game sweep of the Minnesota Twins with a 5-1 win on the radio and on the road last night. The win was Chris Sale's 15th of the year. Atlanta is now 6-1, dating back to August 23rd. Within 5 games of Philadelphia in the division and 4 full games over New York in the wild card race. Kids, wear your glasses when you're supposed to. The Florida Gators got good news ahead